Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Friday, so you and I survived this week, but maybe not for so much long because the title of this video is a question mark. Did Russia really just launch an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile? It doesn't have to be nuclear, but usually when people hear an ICBM they think nuclear. Well, the answer is yes, they launched it, but no, it wasn't nuclear. In this video, we're going to go through all of the information that is out there about the launch of the Russian ICBM against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. And this is the very first time in human history that this kind of weapon has been used against a military target, an ICBM against a military target. Now, it wasn't a nuclear version, it didn't carry nuclear capabilities, but it was still an ICBM. After this video, you know all there is to know about the information that is public. It all started on November 20th when the United States government warned their embassy workers in Kyiv that they have information that a massive air attack is coming and the workers of the embassy should be ready to go into a shelter on a moment's notice. It was an official, publicly issued warning by the United States to its own embassy workers. Nobody knew what's going on, everybody was talking about this warning, and voila, one day later we get this route of missiles, we get this air attack. This is the specific, precise route which the Russian missiles and drones took. There were three kind of capabilities in this attack: kamikaze drones, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. And the ballistic missiles with the ballistic trajectory were the ones that were the ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles. And there are videos about it. We have videos of landing of the missiles, landing of the ICBMs into the Dnipro city. And you can see it right here. Let's watch the whole thing. Here they come. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We have 6 salvos. This looks like to be a MIRV warhead, or a warhead that re-enters into the atmosphere from the ballistic trajectory from the space and re-enters and then breaks into multiple warheads that target multiple areas. Well, in this case, they targeted the same area. And as you can count, from this video you actually can't, but there's another video when you can see that each of these flashes of lights, there's 5 or 6 re-entry vehicles, as you would call them, and they possibly broke from one missile warhead. So 6 salvos of then 6 smaller warheads that hit the city of Dnipro, and we don't see explosions. Look, they hit, there's a minor flash of light and then nothing. This leads us to conclude that they did not have warheads in them, no explosives. It's just the kinetic force of them. The video shows the alleged arrival of warheads of a Russian intercontinental ballistic missile in the Dnipro. According to international treaties, countries that have intercontinental ballistic missiles are obliged to inform others about launches. The fixation of such launches occurs immediately, and then the control of the trajectory is already carried out. Apparently, yesterday's panic of the Western embassies is connected with this. This missile must be shot down before it opens up and throws off the combat units, or that one missile breaks into 6 different ones, as I talked about before. Otherwise, you will have to destroy each combat unit individually, of which there are 6, according to the video. And there's another footage here. You can see the 6 different combat vehicles, whatever you want to call them, 6 different missiles, warheads, and destroying them one by one, quite impossible. Note that this occurs without explosion. That is, damage is caused only by kinetic impact. Such attacks do not cause significant damage, and the intercontinental ballistic missile is a rather expensive product. Hence, this is purely a demonstration of power. Yes, Russia could have attached explosive warheads onto the missiles, I guess they didn't have them and they needed some kind of a response to Ukraine using storm shadows on Russian soil. Yes, we'll touch upon that subject also, because not only did Russia, for the first time in UN history, use an ICBM against a civilian target or a military target, however you want to call it, it was a civilian target. Also, for the first time in history, a storm shadow was used on Russian soil. So I guess this ICBM usage is the response of Ukraine using the storm shadows on Russian soil, and they hit a juicy target. We're going to go through it later. But first, we have more information on the ICBMs. No, it is not a nuke. Yes, each of these there were 6 groups of this, are designed to be equipped with one. No, Ukraine does not have the capability to shoot that down. Yes, it is an escalation. No, it didn't do a lot of damage. Yes, it was a message. No, nuclear war isn't coming tomorrow. Yes, nuclear war is a threat that got closer. No, I don't think it deters NATO overall. Yes, I think it should warrant a re-evaluation of NATO end goals. No, I don't think Ukraine should stop fighting if they don't want to. So this guy is saying we shouldn't downplay the importance of it. He's right and he's wrong, both, because we shouldn't downplay it, we shouldn't also overplay it. This is Putin sending a clear message, again, like he has been sending them for the last forever, that we have nuclear weapons and we can use them. This is designed on international stage to sow fear in people, because Putin's one of the most expensive and effective weapons is fear. Fear is what stops Western powers from aiding Ukraine for actually defeating Russia. Putin knows this. So choose not to be afraid, then you have already won. Let's look at the damage, the actual physical damage this ICBM made. And if I say ICBM, it really sounds wrong, because it was, as I said before, a kinetic force hitting this building right here. It didn't have any explosives in it, just the massive speed of that physical part of the missile that hit the building. I mean, look, this is very minor damage, just damaged the roof. If it truly was an ICBM with regular explosives, the kaboom would be massive. It would have carried a nuke, then we don't even talk anymore. But this was without explosives, just the physical body hitting a roof of a building, so no damage really done. But it's really peculiar, because what we can be sure of is that this missile, supposedly the RS-26 Rubish ICBM, the Russia wields, is massively expensive. Like one of the most expensive missiles they have. The impact side of one of the rods of the Russian ICBM RS-26 launched this morning at the city of Dnipro. The emergency service of Ukraine regarding the damage caused by attack, quote, "In the morning the enemy attacked Dnipro with 2 people were wounded. The building of the rehabilitation center for the people with disabilities was damaged." What the hell, that was the goal? The boiler room was partially destroyed and the windows were broken. So, you use your ICBM, which is what it costs, like $10 million each, perhaps more, 13 I think it was, to destroy windows of a rehabilitation center. They launched a super duper intercontinental mega missile to destroy a garage. And they still think they can resist the United States or NATO as a whole. Russian ICBMs have zero precision. Launching them on a city is another war crime. 2 people wounded for $10 million or 1 billion rubles, turning ruble into rubble. That's how it is. Massive, massive costs, very expensive message that Putin just sent. Also, he did more harm to himself, because if it was the RS-26, then he just proved that they are very unprecise, because they definitely did not want to hit a rehabilitation center with a $13 million missile. But there's another piece of information about the RS-26, and I hate to say this, but it's not what you think. This is my best guess on the makeup of the warhead that was carried by the RS-26 Rubež last night. I believe it contains 6 inert simulated warheads with the shape and weight of a nuclear warhead that are intended solely for testing of the system. To save money, the casings on the warheads were made from mild steel or some other alloy and not the heat-resistant re-entry casing that a live warhead would have. Because of this, each of the 6 warheads broke up on re-entry. Each of the test warheads would probably have contained several steel, lead, or other weights in them, which could be changed out depending on the total weight required for the warhead being tested. Upon re-entry, the casings disintegrated from the heat created by friction with the atmosphere, and the weights within them separated and can be seen, making the effect seen in the video and images of the strike. And you can see it right here, 6 white lines. And let's watch another piece of footage from another camera. On this one you can see a bit clearer than the first one, that there were 6 white lines or 6 re-entry vehicles, whatever you want to call them. You can't see them like really clearly, but you can see how they come down like rods of God. They look magnificent, but they did not do any damage and they're fully burning, as you can see. So the last thread saying that they burned up on re-entry because they used a cheaper steel, not the heat-resistant one, to save money, might be true here. Plus the explosion was almost non-existent, meaning maybe they had already massively disintegrated. Now a final piece of information. After that you know everything that is important. Regarding reports about the ICBM fired by Russia Dnipro, my take is that one must be skeptical and cautious. Regarding the intercontinental claim, the distance from Kapustin Yar to Dnipro is about 800 kilometers. It's not an intercontinental range, but it's complicated. Some reports mention the RS-26 Rubež missile. Even if we believe them, the RS-26 is not really an intercontinental missile. It was tested at the range of more than 5,500 kilometers, but it is in effect an intermediate range missile. The RS-26 program was mothballed in 2018. One cannot rule out that the RS-26 was taken out of its retirement for a strike. This implies that Russia had a number of these missiles in storage for almost 10 years. Not impossible, but rather unlikely. But it doesn't have to be an RS-26. Most ICBMs have the minimum range, and it appears that 800 kilometers would be possible for modern Russian ICBMs. Some Topol M and Yar's ICBMs are road mobile, so launch from Kapustin Yar is possible. Using these kinds of missiles, whether RS-26 or a true ICBM, in a conventional role does not make a lot of sense because of their relatively low accuracy and high cost. Low accuracy and high cost, and since it's a Russian tech, the accuracy is not a goal for the ICBMs. The accuracy can be 10 kilometers, maybe 5 kilometers, maybe 1 kilometer, whatever it is. It's meant to carry a nuclear warhead, which the explosion, the kaboom, is so magnificent, it don't matter if you hit with a kilometer, you destroy anything anyway. So they're not precise and they're very, very expensive. But this kind of strike might have a value as a signal, as a message. I would urge people to keep calm, not assume automatically that intercontinental is something inherently and immediately dangerous, but it should be taken seriously. Everyone should be cautious about making claims or sending interpreting signals. If it was a true ICBM, Russia had to provide a launch notification notice to the US 24 hours in advance, but probably not to China, since the missile was not launched in China's direction. Now we know clearly that this, first of all, did not have explosives in them. It was a kinetic force only hitting the city of Dnipro. It didn't hit anything important, anything of military value. It hit a rehabilitation center, destroying its windows. So Putin used several $10 million missiles to destroy a window of a building. So it was for sending a message, a very expensive message. But that message is designed to sow fear in your head. And what I say now is you have a choice. Choose not to be afraid, and you have already won over this. By the way, my friends, at the same day, this video surfaced at the same day of the missiles that were launched yesterday. November 21st, 6 Tu-95MS strategic bombers taking off from local airfield to attack Ukraine with Kh-101 missiles, costing 13 million each. Engels, November 20th, to eliminate a flood of shit in a residential building, they sent in a diver. Hey, I'm not kidding you. Winter is coming, or winter is here. It's already snowing in Estonia also. That means temperatures are going to plummet. And what doesn't go together with cold temperatures? Russian piping systems, Russian heating infrastructure, which is almost a century old and has not been properly maintained, meaning every winter the catastrophe is getting worse and worse. And at this specific place, it's a cellar filled with shit and pee. Shit and piss. And a diver just came out of it trying to fix it. This is the country that sends ICBM-s on a civilian target without an explosive warhead. And they have to send in a diver to their basement to clear up the shit and piss. Wow. And by the way, it's not an isolated event. This will happen this winter. I've made the predictions for this for months now. When temperatures cross -30, close to -40 in January and February, we're talking Celsius, nobody has an idea how big of a catastrophe is going to happen in Russian cities. People will freeze to death. That's how it's going to be. Already right now, we have only several small -degrees. In the world's greatest superpower, sarcasm, just like last year, heating pipelines begin to burst as the cold sets in. In Saratov, a second major pipeline ruptured within 24 hours. It has left 16,500 residents without heat and cold water. On November 19th, as a significant incident occurred on an underground heating pipeline in Leninsky district. Earlier on November 11th, a heating pipeline collapsed onto parked cars. So, look, this is the piping. You don't maintain it. It's gonna go kaboom on you, leaving tens of thousands without heating. This stuff will happen this winter in Russia a lot. It's not military related in any way. It's not anything NATO has done or United States has done. It is just unmaintained heating infrastructure, water infrastructure. And this is a deadlier weapon than any missile can be, because this affects millions of Russian people. And the cold is unforgiving. It doesn't pick sides. It takes everybody who don't have heat. Well, ATACMS were allowed to be used on Russian soil. ATACMS were released. And now almost daily we have gotten footages like this. Look at this. It looks apocalyptic. It looks nice and beautiful, almost like New Year's. But no, my friends, this is Krasnodar, Russia. And it's burning big time. You can see there's several explosions, and there's so much footage about it, I couldn't even go through all of it. A bad day for Russia is a good day for humanity. We don't know what was hit, but we do know that already 3 ammunition depots have been hit with ATACMS on Russian soil. So Russia is losing massive amount of ammunition. We're talking perhaps tens of thousands of tons or tens of millions of dollars worth of ammunitions or missile parts or drones in the ATACMS strikes. Now some say that this Krasnodar attack was an ammunition depot. Well, this explosion maybe confirms it. Wow. Russia sends an intercontinental ballistic missile to Ukraine, but the mushroom clouds are in Russia. Done by ATACMS. Beautiful. Putin lost around 60,000 tons in missiles and rockets in just the past 2 days between 3 arsenals. Tens of billions of dollars. Oh, yeah, I said tens of millions before. I meant billions. Add another zero to it. But my friends, now it's the top shop time. But wait, there's more, because also Storm Shadow was released. The Ukrainian army forces launched the British Storm Shadow missiles deep into Russia for the first time. It's beautiful. Storm Shadow is doing for what it was intended for. Here is all of the footage of the target deep inside Russia. And you know what's weird? Storm Shadow was able to get through, Russians couldn't intercept it, but also the recon drone was not intercepted or shot down. Look at it, just flying, looking at the target in Russia. No problem at all. This was the complex the Storm Shadow struck, and they used many of them, many. Ukrainian forces released drone footage of the Storm Shadow strikes against Marino, Kursk region, Russia. It shows that the missiles targeted the secondary buildings of that facility and hit at least 3 buildings. This was an important operation, that's for sure. The fact that the Russian air defense failed to this extent that the missiles got through, and even the surveillance drone could operate on him. Yeah. And here it is, here's the target. By the way, we now know the result of this attack, and it's beautiful. Let me read it to you. Russian channels are reporting that the recent strike by Ukrainian Air Force using at least 10 Storm Shadow air-launched cruise missiles against an underground fortified command center in the Kursk region resulted in the death of 18 Russian officers, including a senior commander, as well as 3 North Korean officers. In addition, a dozen other soldiers and officers were wounded in the attack, including one North Korea's most senior generals. Very nice. 2 days ago, my friends, a Russian Ministry of Defense internal document leaked, and the contents of that document, oh, they're juicy, I love it. An entire regiment of the 20th Motorized Rifle Division of the Russian Armed Forces deserted. And when I say deserted, I don't mean they started eating dessert altogether. I mean deserted. Internal documents from the Ministry of Defense about an entire regiment of the deserters have been posted online. It has become known that more than 1,000 soldiers of the Russian 20th Guards Motorized Rifle Division have fled from the front and are listed as having left the unit without permission. The document contains the names, dates of birth, ranks and other information of 858 contract soldiers, 150 mobilized soldiers and 2 conscripts. I wonder how those 2 conscripts ended up in there. Among them are 26 junior officers, a major and 2 lieutenant colonels. Beautiful news. I always love to cover this kind of stuff. Now, Russian economy. That's a topic I've almost covered in every video now, because we keep getting signals from it signaling that it's going to collapse, it's going to stagnate. And I wasn't alive during the Brezhnev times, but my parents were. Everybody in the former Soviet Union countries knows about the stagnation times. That's what they call the 10 years of Brezhnev rule time in the Soviet Union, where almost everything was a deficit. You couldn't get anything from anywhere. That's what's going to happen to Russia. Russia's economy is in worse shape than previously reported. Russian central bank has nearly exhausted its reserves. Number 1, no people left. Worsening labor market with a 73% of enterprises facing labor shortages. Number 2, production at its limits. Factory capacity utilization surpasses 80%, a record high. When an economy reaches the limit of its productive capacity, while demand continues to be simulated, stagnation arises. Number 3, credit bubble and isolation. Rising interest rates are driving up credit costs. Commodity industries are losing Western markets, and defense factories are running at full capacity. Number 4, slowing GDP growth. Despite enormous stimulus, GDP growth slowed to 3.1% in third quarter, down from 4.1% in second quarter and 5.4% in first quarter. So it's just, going downhill like that. And number 5, the final point here is stagnation. The central bank predicts near stagnation next year with GDP growth of 0.5 to 1% and a flat investment and private consumption. So you get 0.5 to 1% of GDP growth with tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions dollars pumped into the economy. I mean, if you pump the same amount into Western economies, the economy would just like kaboom. I mean, look at S&P 500 after 2020. That was where Biden went like, okay, we're going to pump this money in because Corona came in. We got to just revitalize the spending of the economy. Look what happened to the S&P. It all exploded. That's how our economy reacts if you pump money into it, if you print money. Russia's doing the same thing. But their stock market is not like the S&P 500 in 2020 after the dip. It went up. It's only dipping. So if they wouldn't pump this money in, we would see the bottom already, and the money is running out. For example, Russian airlines suspended operation of 34 Airbus aircraft, half of all such aircraft in Russia. The reason is problem with engines due to sanctions, or more simply put, they cannot maintain them anymore. And it's such a Russian problem with the electrical and heating infrastructure. No maintenance has ever been done to any of them because all of the maintenance money allocated from the Kremlin, from the state, to the local governments have been stolen by the governors. They got new villas, new Maybachs, Mercedes, BMWs, but it hasn't been maintained. And now every winter pipes go kaboom, kaboom. Same with the airlines. They don't maintain their stuff, which means for the next 10 years, the people can steal the money, live good. But after that time, or any kind of period of time for which the thing was intended for, if it works, it works. But if it stops working, suddenly there's going to be a catastrophe. With the planes, it's especially bad because they will fall out of the skies. Now, my friends, I saw this video of a British Army chief speaking. It's 20 seconds, it's not long, but I want to watch the video because I really like the message. And I know it to be true because Lithuania, for example, our Baltic brother, is right now building out and finishing their brigade home. A Western brigade will be fully stationed in Lithuania all the time, every second. So if you're looking at this from like Germany or United States and think, oh, look at the map, Russia can steamroll the Baltics, then think again. We have an entire brigade of fully Western equipped, Western capabilities stationed, present here all the time. And that's Lithuania, but that's not Estonia. For us, it's the British brigade, but they will not be here. They will be in Britain, stationed in Britain on QRF. It's like a quick response force for Estonia, and they will be always ready. This is what he's talking about.
If the British Army was asked to fight tonight, yes, it would fight tonight. And I don't think anybody in this room should be under any illusion that if the Russians invaded Eastern Europe tonight, then we would meet them in that fight. That would be the first point I'd make.
Thank you, General. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely certain that if the Russians invaded Eastern Europe, the British Army would be there. I'm a reserve officer, so I would probably be there with them.
Yeah. There are capabilities present in the Baltics that there's going to be thousands of Western troops always present here. There are already thousands of Western troops in Poland, very close to the Baltics, and there's a full build-out fest going on in Finland for the NATO capabilities. There will be a missile and drone base built like 50 kilometers from the Russian border there. So it's not going to be that old, oh, Russia is going to steamroll. No way. We're building out an iron curtain to the east. Talking about the United Kingdom, though, news came out of the UK that they're going to scrap a massive amount of their ships. They're going for the goal of saving money, and it is reported that by scrapping these ships in the next few years, they will save $500 million, 500 million. But people reacted very negatively to it because, as I always say also, that Western powers need to allocate more money to the military, not take away military capabilities. But in this case, I even tend to be with the UK's government because sometimes keeping up an old tech is much more expensive than using the money that you get from scrapping it to build new tech. That's what they're doing. So this post here says, encourage the British to do the right thing and donate these vessels to the Ukrainian army. These are all of the vessels they're going to scrap, and some people, a lot of people in the West say, okay, why you scrap them? Donate to the Ukrainians. Well, the issue with old ships is really, like old planes also, is that it's massively expensive to maintain them, and if you do, they're dangerous on sea because they might sink at any moment or the engine might stop working. Then you're a sitting duck, especially if you're fighting Russia and they're looking for ships like that. So Ukraine, unfortunately, don't want to sink that money into these vessels just to keep them afloat. And if something were to happen to them, I mean, the amount of sailors that would go under if Russia attacks a sitting broken ship on the sea. I'm kind of against sending these to Ukraine because it's crap. Send them new ships if you want to send them anything, but this kind of stuff, I mean, I understand the M113, right? It works, it goes, fulfills its duties. But these ships, they're a hazard. They're very dangerous. So I'm kind of against sending this old stuff to Ukraine. I'll read you a thread to illustrate what I mean. The Ministry of Defense is retiring a number of capabilities to save money. In the biggest cuts to the RN is nearly 20 years. 5 warships or 100,000 tons of shipping are being scrapped along with 32 helicopters and dozens of drones. Long thread on why this isn't as bad as some may think. The context is that the Ministry of Defense is finally strained due to inflation, cost growth, rise in operating costs and shortfalls of people. Elderly equipment is being run on far longer than planned, and there is not enough money to do everything that the Ministry of Defense wants to do. This is a problem whichever party was in government would need to tackle head on. How bad is it? How bad are these ships that they're going to scrap? For the RN, it's actually not that bad. Northumberland was beyond economic repair following the serious structural issues. Rotten Neil. That she is afloat and not on the seabed is arguably a minor miracle if this is true. It's probably the biggest loss to the RN. But it is also realistic. We cannot send ships to sea that have broken Neils, nor does it make sense to spend money we don't have fixing elderly ships for far past their designed life for a handful of years service. The Wave class have been in reserve for 3 years, at least one for almost a decade. They were due to retire in 3 years. The RFA has no crew to operate them or put them to sea, and this situation is not going to change anytime soon. These ships were never going to sea again. So yeah, the situation is not that easy that you have something, okay, send it to Ukraine. Why I'm talking about and defending this idea is because I get a massive amount of letters of people wanting to send stuff to Ukraine. And I just want to respond, Ukraine does not need old crap. They need new, effective, expensive and quality working items and weapons. Some people say, I have an old phone I want to send. I have an old laptop. They need a new laptop. They need the one they can depend on the front lines. If you have old stuff, Ukraine don't need it. Very rarely they can use it, like the M113. You can send a massive sheer number of these, and they do work. They're easy to repair compared to like a Leopard tank, for example. M113, you can repair it on the field. Of course, send thousands. But these ships, you cannot repair them on the go. You gotta dry dock them. You gotta, there's no way to fix them without pouring massive amount of money into them. And also, just to bring it down to more people level, old phone, old laptop, knitted socks, stuff like that. No, Ukraine needs real new things, quality production, usually expensive production. If you can't send that, there's no point in sending crap to Ukraine. It's not goodwill there. They need stuff that works and that you can rely on. Now, my friends, for the last time of this week, I'm gonna butcher some Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. These guys are the foundation of this channel, keeping me going if YouTube goes up and down. And I want to thank them with the weirdest way possible. Joshua McDonald, Rupert Wolfe Murray, Dr. 6149, Paldi Bob, Marissa Kennake, Thank you to these 5 weird named people for supporting the channel every month and buy me a coffee. Link is in the description below. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Monday, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.